Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with The Last Huntsman Outdoors here. Here I have the Reiff F5. This one has the micarta on it. I have to give a special thanks to Reiff Knives for sending this to me for testing and review. I also got the neat little lantern bead on there from Exodus Knife and Tool, so be sure to check out him and also check out his t-shirts, Exodus Knife and Tool. But let's get to this review. All right, so here we have the Reiff F5. It's in Reiff Knives, good old CPM 3V, made in the United States of America up in Idaho. It's right around 3/16 thick, 5-inch blade. This one has micarta handles, which I really like the way they're doing their micarta. It has that good kind of traction on it. And then of course they have these in both either a Kydex or leather sheath, which I opted to get the leather sheath. The maker on the leather is Badger Claw Outfitters. I am absolutely in love with this leather sheath. For this size of knife and the way it will be carried, I really like this leather sheath. It has awesome fit and stuff. I actually get more into the leather sheath and this whole thing. Let's also show some comparison knives just so that you guys kind of see kind of some size options here. Here's the Demco Free Rein. Here's the Work Tough Gear Red Wolf. Here's the Schwarz Lost Trail. And some people might get triggered by this one, but here is the Survive GSO 4.7. So kind of that 5-inch camp knife size. Let's get using it. Piece of hardwood here. I think it's elm. Just cut down this tree with the Beavercraft axe, but I'm going to use this knife to baton it. Show must go on, right? Knocked over camera is not going to stop me. Heavy piece of hardwood here. I think it's elm, but I could be wrong on that. Go ahead and baton it with the Reiff F5. Right through that knot. Right, gonna do a little bit more batoning with the Reiff F5. Got this gnarly piece of oak right there, so we're gonna give it a try here. Nice. If we get another little piece out of that. right through that knot. And good to go. I'm gonna try to do some feather sticks here with the Reiff F5. Actually getting some nice curls, just getting them to stay on wood here. Not too bad. I'm gonna test out the 90-degree spine on there. Just gonna get some fat wood scrapings here. Not really gonna get a big fire going because it's like 90 degrees out here, so it's pretty toasty. And then got my Phil's EDC ferro rod. And there we go. Quick little fire with the Reiff F5. I am fairly impressed with the sharp spine on this knife. Another task I'm going to do with the F5 from Reiff, I'm going to see if I can get some notches here. This is a little awkward piece of wood I'm using here, but we'll make it work. Start off with a little square notch. A little square notch. Let's get a little tent stake notch here going. And got me a couple little notches right there. Another test I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some cross grain batoning here and just really test out that CPM 3V. Not a problem. Here, let's try to go right through that knot. We'll give it to Reiff Knives. Their 3V is spot on. Do just a tad bit more cross grain batoning. This is a piece of oak, so it's going to be a little heavier and harder than that cedar I was batoning. Oh wow. Just popped right through the oak. All right, so another thing I wanted to talk about with the Reiff F5 is while this also is offered in a Kydex, I am very impressed with that leather. Look at that leather. It's just an awesome fit. It has awesome retention. It just matches this knife really good. Generally, if I'm gonna go with a leather sheath, I like this kind of traditional pouch style, and I put this Exodus knife into a little lantern bead on there just because I feel like it kind of helped me draw it a little easier. And something else that it comes with, and Reiff might actually consider something like this, is this clip on here. Jacob Peterson gave me this idea because I don't like taking my belt off to put a knife on. So I seen he did something kind of similar. So all I've been doing is just taking this, if I could, yeah, hooking it right on my belt loop there, and it's ready to go. And so it has a little bit of a dangler, but it's not like crazy ridiculous flopping around. But the leather sheath that's offered with this Reiff F5 is absolutely amazing. I like it. Another test I'm going to do with the Reiff F5 is I'm just going to do my good old Ninja Death Grip. I'm just going to get a good grip on it, and I'm just going to do some slicing. Now, one thing I do like about the F5 is they did a high saber grind on there instead of kind of like that mid saber grind like they did on the F6. I feel like the F5 is a little bit more slicey than the F6 is. I do like that this one came with the micarta. Ergonomics feels amazing on this, quite honestly. It's maybe just slightly a little big for my medium-sized hands, but it still feels really good. If you have large hands, this is going to feel just perfect for you. And that 3/16 thick CPM 3V still is quite a slicey blade. I will say I think the Reiff F5 here kind of leans a little more on like the tanky side, but sometimes that's what you want for like a camp knife, and this is definitely a very hard use type of camp knife. It does pretty good. Just gonna do a little bit more whittling here. Just slicing. Feels great. This knife just, it wants to be used. Now, one little kind of side topic here that I've heard some people will address with Reiff Knives is, or it might be pronounced Reiff Knives, depends on who you ask, is that some people will say that these are expensive knives. And I know in this kind of economy, they are expensive. I'm not going to deny that one bit. That being said, the fit, finish, and quality on these knives is something to last a lifetime. So while it may seem expensive, if you're thinking about something that's going to last you for the rest of your life, then it's not really that expensive. And to consider also, this is an American-made small company. This is funding, you know, American jobs and stuff, not some cheap Chinese company that has, you know, 1,000 slave laborers. And so that's just something to kind of consider when looking at something like this, because, you know, I've tried all kinds of different knives, obviously, but it's the Reiff knives and, you know, a handful of others that I could look at this knife and I could just be like, man, my grandkids are probably going to get this knife, you know, and that's something all on its own right there. And it's kind of one of those things like, do you need 50 knives or do you want one really good knife? If it was up to me, I think I'd almost lean on the one really good knife. Some cordage cutting here. Glides right through it just fine. And speaking of glide, Reiff also has another model that's in the same size. Now they kind of describe the size range. It's bigger than the Reiff F4, but it's smaller than the Reiff F6. F5, no crap, right? But They also have another model in the same size called the F5 Glider, which has a Scandi grind. I'm glad they sent me this one. I do not like Scandi grinds. Me personally, I think High Saber grind is my favorite grind overall. Like if I could pick like one grind that's my favorite overall grind, it's the High Saber grind. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this initial review of the Reiff F5. I will be coming back to this knife. I'm eager to come back to this knife. If you're on the fence on this knife, I'm just going to straight up say, I always highly suggest a Reiff knife. I like Reiff Knives. They're one of my favorite companies overall. I think their fit and finish and just their overall quality is absolutely amazing. So if you're, like I said, if you're kind of checking one of these out and wanting one, I'd say go for it. I really liked the leather sheath. I like the overall quality. This size, in some ways, I think I actually like the F5 better than I do the F6. And usually I tend to lean more on like that 6-inch blade, but there's just something, I think it's the higher grind on the F5 that I actually tend to lean on a little more than that kind of mid-saber grind. But really impressed with this knife. Like I said, this is just kind of an initial review. I will be coming back to this, might be doing kind of a fall camping trip, and this is definitely going to be coming with me. So with all that being said, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless and carry on.